Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a relationship where you gave everything? Your time, your energy, your loyalty. And deep down, you could feel it, he was taking you for granted. Not because he didn't care at all, but because he thought you'd never leave. He got lazy. He stopped showing up the way he used to. He stopped noticing the things you needed, stopped putting in the effort, and slowly, the spark dimmed. And you kept hoping, kept waiting, thinking, maybe he'll realize what he's doing. Maybe he'll step up, but he didn't, because he thought you never would. Until one day, you walked. And now, his biggest regret isn't just losing you. It's realizing too late that the one person he thought would always stay was strong enough to go. Let's talk about why that moment, your decision to leave, might be the most powerful thing you've ever done. When someone believes you'll never leave, they stop trying in ways that matter. It's not always intentional, and it rarely starts with a conscious thought like, I can do whatever I want and they'll still stay. No, it begins slowly, subtly, with small moments of neglect, skipped date nights, missed check-ins, words that once made you feel seen and special gradually disappear. And instead of fighting to keep your connection alive, they get comfortable in the idea that your love is permanent, guaranteed. That's what complacency looks like in a relationship. The moment someone starts believing they've already won you, they stop playing the game. The effort they made at the beginning, it fades. The thoughtful texts, the plans to surprise you, the little ways they used to show love, those gestures that made you fall in love, they fall by the wayside. Not because they no longer care, but because they no longer think they have to. We all want love that feels secure, but love isn't the absence of effort. It's built through consistent effort. It's not about grand gestures, it's about the day-to-day energy that says, I choose you still, today, again. And when someone stops showing that, it starts to chip away at the trust you built. And here's the painful part often, the person on the receiving end. You stay longer than you should. You justify. You hope. You convince yourself that maybe it's just a phase, that things will go back to the way they were, because you remember how good it used to be. You're not wrong for that. You're human. We hold on to potential, to memories, to what we wish could come back. But what you're really doing is waiting for someone to remember how to value you. Instead of realizing they stopped doing it because they didn't fear losing you anymore. That fear, the healthy kind, matters. People treat what they value with care. And yes, real love should feel safe. But safety doesn't mean passivity. When someone thinks you'll stay no matter how little they give, the relationship starts to become one-sided. You begin to do all the emotional labor. You bring up the hard conversations. You plan everything. You apologize first. You make excuses for their behavior. And with every bit of effort they stop making, you quietly start making more, until eventually you feel more like a caregiver than a partner. But here's the truth they never saw coming, the very thing they took for granted. Your loyalty was never meant to be unconditional absence of standards. You were never going to stay forever just because you had history. You weren't going to keep pouring from an empty cup while they watched. And so, when you finally left, when you finally chose yourself, it shocked them. Because in their mind, you were the one who never would. They underestimated you. They thought comfort was love. That familiarity was enough. That effort could be optional because you were reliable. What they didn't understand is that being reliable doesn't mean being endless. You gave chances. You communicated. You waited. And when nothing changed, you made the decision they never believed you could. And now they regret it. Not just because they lost you, but because it hit them too late. Love isn't about locking someone down. It's about earning them every single day. You standing up for yourself was never the problem. It was the wake-up call he didn't want to hear. When you finally drew that line, the one you'd been afraid to draw for so long, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of clarity. Because you started realizing that the version of you who kept tolerating less than she deserved wasn't love, it was fear disguised as patience. Fear of being alone, fear of losing what you'd invested in, fear of starting over. And yet, when the moment came, when enough truly became enough, you chose your peace over the possibility of fixing something that was breaking you. He mistook your grace for permission. He saw your understanding as something endless, something unconditional. And to be fair, maybe you taught him that. Maybe you stayed silent one too many times. Maybe you forgave him before he ever apologized. Maybe you said, "It's okay," when it wasn't. Not because you were weak, but because you loved him. Because you wanted to believe he'd come around, that he'd finally meet you halfway. You thought that if you kept loving harder, louder, longer, he'd eventually wake up and reciprocate. But it doesn't work like that. What happens instead is this: when you don't enforce your standards, people assume you don't have any. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the more you begin to lose sight of what you even need to feel loved, seen, respected. You start to shrink, you suppress, you negotiate with your own gut, and then one day something inside you clicks. It's usually not even a dramatic moment, it's quiet. Still, like an internal voice you can't ignore anymore that says, "You've done enough," not in bitterness, not with revenge. Just finality. And when you finally decide to walk away, something interesting happens. He doesn't see it coming, because in his mind, he thought your love meant staying no matter what. He thought your softness was an invitation to keep doing the bare minimum. He genuinely didn't think you'd leave, not because he didn't value you at all, but because he didn't understand that real value is shown in effort, not assumed by presence. So when you left, when you finally chose your standard over your history, it shook him. He may not say it out loud, but deep down, he knows he didn't just lose a person. He lost someone who believed in him, someone who gave him chance after chance to grow, to step up, to meet you where you were. And now he has to sit with the reality that the very thing he feared, losing you, happened because he never feared it enough to change. But here's the truth: your standards were never a punishment. They were a gift. They were a blueprint for how to love you. They weren't demands. They were directions. And had he followed them, he would have seen that they were never about controlling him. They were about protecting your heart. Setting a standard isn't about making someone feel small. It's about honoring the space you're willing to invite someone into. The most intimate, vulnerable parts of who you are. That space requires care. It requires consistency. And most importantly, it requires someone who doesn't wait until you walk away to appreciate it. So no, you weren't too much. You weren't dramatic. You weren't expecting too much. You were just finally done explaining why your needs mattered. And in doing that, you gave him the greatest opportunity to rise. Or the clearest reason why you were done waiting. Love without boundaries often begins as something beautiful. It feels open, trusting, generous. You give freely, you forgive quickly. You believe the best in someone because that's what love is supposed to look like, right? But what you come to realize, sometimes painfully, is that love without boundaries can slowly become a space where respect starts to erode, where comfort turns into carelessness, where one person starts assuming that no matter how little they give, you'll still be there. In a healthy relationship, boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks. They allow love in, but they also protect what matters most: your dignity, your energy, your sense of self. When someone knows that there's no consequence for their actions, they stop putting in the effort. Why would they go the extra mile when they've been rewarded for staying still? It's not that they don't love you, it's that they stop thinking they need to show it in the ways that matter. That's the danger of a relationship with no clear lines. It tells the other person that love is unconditional in all the wrong ways, that no matter what they do or don't do, you'll stay, you'll adapt, you'll compensate for the gap. And the more they lean into that pattern, the more the balance shifts. You become the one who carries the emotional weight. You start fixing things that aren't yours to fix, explaining feelings they never asked about, accepting apologies that are never followed by action. When someone genuinely fears losing you, they behave differently. They take your feelings seriously. They listen. They course correct. Not out of fear in the toxic sense, but out of respect, out of care, out of knowing that loving you is a privilege, not a certainty. But when someone thinks they've already got you, they stop earning you. And that's where so many relationships fall apart, quietly, slowly, not with big betrayals, but with small moments of neglect, compounded over time. You can tell when someone stops worrying about losing you, because they stop checking in. They stop making you feel special. They stop showing up when it matters. You start feeling invisible, even when you're right there. And what's most heartbreaking is that you start doubting yourself. Am I asking for too much? Am I being too sensitive? Should I just accept that this is what love looks like now? No, you're not too much. You're just in something where your lack of boundaries has been mistaken for endless tolerance. It's hard to admit, especially when you love someone deeply, that your love has allowed them to become lazy, that your kindness gave them a cushion they took for granted. But the truth is, if someone believes they can never lose you, they'll never truly fight to keep you. They'll stop growing. And growth is everything in a lasting relationship. You set the tone for how people treat you, not with your words, but with what you allow. Every time you ignore your own needs to keep the peace, you reinforce the idea that your needs don't matter. Every time you accept effort that's beneath your standard, you send the message that they can get away with it. And eventually, that's what they do, until you stop, until you draw the line, until you show that your love comes with self-respect. And when that happens, when you finally stop bending, that's when they wake up. Not always in time, but always with the same thought: I didn't think I could lose her. Because they got too used to you staying and forgot what it meant to truly deserve you. There's something powerful about the way you left. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. There was no screaming match, no final warning, no last attempt to beg for the love you deserved. It was quiet, measured, calm, and that silence, that absence of chaos, is what he never saw coming. Because he expected something else. He expected you to stay in the cycle, to argue, to cry, to plead one more time. That's what always happened before, but not this time. This time, you just walked away. People underestimate the quiet exit. They don't realize it's the most serious kind. It's not reactive. It's not emotional in the heat of the moment. It's not meant to punish. It's a decision that's been building for a long time, through disappointment after disappointment, through all the times you spoke up and weren't heard, through all the moments you compromised yourself just to keep things alive. The quiet exit is the final step in a journey you didn't want to take, but had no choice but to complete. He thought you'd stay forever because you always had, even when you were hurting, even when he gave you less and less, even when you were slowly becoming a version of yourself you didn't recognize. He thought you leaving would come with warning signs, like it had in the past. What he didn't realize is that by the time you're truly done, there are no more signs. Just silence, just space. And now, that silence is what haunts him. He doesn't hear your voice, doesn't see your name pop up, doesn't feel the energy of someone trying to fix things anymore. That's when it hits. Not just that you're gone, but that you didn't need to shout about it, that your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. He regrets it, not just because you left, but because he never thought you would. He thought you were ride or die, that your patience meant permanence, but it didn't. Your patience meant you were hoping for change, and when change never came, your silence became the only thing left to give. And the most powerful part, it wasn't meant to teach him a lesson. It wasn't meant to make him chase you. It was just your truth. You didn't need to announce it. You simply chose peace over persistence. He's sitting with that now, with the quiet, with the stillness that used to be filled by your effort, your care, your voice. He thought he had more time, that there'd be another argument, another round of you trying to explain your pain. But the truth is, you don't beg someone to listen when you already know they're not hearing you. You just stop talking. And when the noise stops, that's when they finally start to feel the weight of what they've lost. The quiet exit isn't a game. It's not manipulation. It's the clearest sign someone has made peace with letting go. And once that peace arrives, there's no turning back. That's what scares him now. Not the fact that you left, but the fact that you did it with no drama, no final warning, no emotional outburst. Just clarity. Just a calm decision rooted in self-respect. That's the part that lingers. That's what replays in his head. The moment he realized you weren't angry anymore. You were just done. And nothing is more final than a goodbye that doesn't ask to be noticed. While he's sitting in his regret, you're rising in your healing. That's the part he never expected. That you wouldn't just leave, but that you'd move on. Not in a rebound kind of way, not with a new face to fill the space, but in the kind of way that says, I'm building a life where I don't have to recover from love anymore. That's the difference between your path and his. He's replaying the past, still trying to understand how it slipped through his fingers, while you're rewriting the future, one strong decision at a time. Regret is a loop. It keeps him stuck in the moments where he didn't show up, where he chose pride over vulnerability, comfort over effort, ego over truth. He probably goes over those days in his head. The ones where you reached for him and he pulled away. The times you asked for more and he shrugged it off. At the time, he thought he had forever, or at least, he thought you weren't going anywhere. But now, he's realizing that love doesn't stay where it's neglected. That someone can love you deeply and still choose to walk away when staying means losing themselves. You, on the other hand, have stopped circling the same old memories. You're not interested in reliving the version of yourself that kept tolerating breadcrumbs. Healing doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means being honest about what it cost you, and then deciding not to pay that price again. It means grieving what could have been, yes, but also celebrating what will be because you finally made room for something healthier. There's a kind of power in walking away, but there's an even deeper power in not looking back. You stopped needing closure from him because you realized that the silence, the lack of change, the emotional absence, that was your closure. He didn't have to say the words. His inaction was the answer. And now he's left with that, with the weight of knowing you gave him time, space, grace, and he wasted all of it. What you're doing now isn't just recovery, it's reinvention. You're becoming someone who no longer needs to chase love to feel worthy. Someone who can trust herself again. Someone who doesn't confuse being chosen with being respected. Healing is a rebuild, and it's not always glamorous. Some days it's lonely. Some nights it still stings. But the difference is, this pain is progress. It's clean, it's purposeful. It's pulling you forward, not keeping you stuck. And he can feel that. Whether he says it or not, he knows you're not where he left you. You're no longer waiting by the door, hoping he figures it out. That version of you is gone. And he'll never meet her again, because she's become someone stronger, wiser, more self-possessed. That's what his regret can't touch. Your growth. His memories might keep him company at night, but they won't bring you back. Because you didn't leave to teach him a lesson. You left to protect your peace. And now that you've tasted what that feels like, nothing, and no one, is worth giving it up again. So while he replays your past, hoping for a chance to do things differently, you're already doing things differently. Not with him, but with yourself. You've learned. You've leveled up. And that is the one thing he can never undo. The fact that you didn't just survive losing him, you became better because of it. The right person doesn't need to lose you to realize your worth. They know it from the beginning, and they act like it. They don't take chances with your heart, and they certainly don't gamble with your presence in their life. Because when someone truly values you, they don't get comfortable, They stay intentional. They don't just love you in words. They prove it in actions. Consistently, not just when they're scared of losing you. The truth is, the man who truly sees you doesn't wait for a breakup to reflect. He doesn't have to feel your absence to understand your importance. He appreciates the quiet ways you show up, the strength it takes to be patient, the vulnerability it takes to love fully. And because he sees those things clearly, he never treats you like you're replaceable. He treats you like you're rare. That's the difference between someone who regrets losing you and someone who works to keep you. Regret happens after damage has been done, after effort has been withheld, after neglect has been normalized. But the right person doesn't let it get that far. He has the emotional maturity to check in with you before things unravel. He doesn't assume you're fine just because you haven't said you're not. He stays present, engaged, curious, not because he's perfect, but because he wants to get it right with you. And that's the kind of energy you should never have to earn. It shouldn't take walking away for someone to start valuing you. It shouldn't take a breakup for them to realize they should have listened when you were still explaining, when you were still fighting for it, when you were still there. If someone only wakes up once you're gone, that's not love. That's loss. And love should never rely on the fear of loss to be taken seriously. When you were with the wrong person, it felt like a constant test, like you had to keep proving your worth just to get the bare minimum. You had to shrink your needs, silence your instincts, make excuses for the lack of effort, because the moment you asked for more, it became too much. That wasn't love. That was survival. And now, having stepped away from that, you start to see the contrast more clearly. Real love doesn't feel like that. Real love holds space for your needs without making you feel guilty for having them. The right person doesn't come into your life to be convinced. They come ready. Ready to listen, to learn, to grow with you. They don't need to lose you to suddenly feel urgency. They feel it every day, not from fear, but from respect. They want to keep showing up, not because you're demanding it, but because they know relationships aren't passive. They're built, maintained, nourished. And when that kind of person shows up, it doesn't feel like you're constantly chasing connection. It feels like you're both running toward the same future. There's no second guessing, no waiting for things to collapse just to be seen. And the most healing part, you won't feel like you're hard to love anymore. You'll feel safe, secure, supported. That's what the man who lost you didn't understand. That your love came with a warning, treat it like it's permanent, and you'll forget it's not. The right man will never need to be reminded of that, because he'll be too busy protecting what he never wants to lose. Not out of fear, but because he finally knows what it means to love someone like you, and he'd never risk letting it slip away. The truth is, he didn't think you'd ever leave. He thought your patience was endless, your love unconditional, your presence permanent. And now, his biggest regret isn't just that you're gone. It's that he waited until you were to realize what he had. But here's what matters more. You didn't wait. You didn't wait forever for someone to become who they were supposed to be. You didn't keep lowering your standards to keep the peace. You didn't stay small just to feel loved. Instead, you made the hardest, bravest choice to walk away from what was breaking you and walk towards something better, even if that better started with being alone. And that moment, that decision to choose yourself, is what changed everything. You stopped trying to fix someone who wasn't trying to keep you. You stopped begging for what should have been freely given. And in doing so, you opened the door to a different kind of love. A love rooted in respect, in effort, in reciprocity. So let his regret stay where it belongs, in his past. You're moving forward, not because you were never enough for him, but because you finally remembered he was never enough for you. Say.